Hey guys, it's Jamie here again, and let's dive into some of these actual numbers from this actual client launch. So, like I said in the first video, this is for a membership site that opens and closes throughout various times of the year, and we had a launch goal of bringing in 1,600 new monthly paying subscription members for this particular launch. Now, like I mentioned, we started off this launch with a workshop, and you can see our first day of sales was super high. Those first 3 days are usually some of the biggest that we see with regard to new sales because people are excited about the webinar or the workshop, and this was definitely the case here too. So if we look at our new members graph over there on the left, we can totally see that. Now, looking at this as a whole, this actually looks pretty standard. There were a couple of things that we learned and that I'm making recommendations for to kind of keep those numbers a little higher throughout that mid-cart period. But you can see the general flow here with really high numbers coming in on the first few days, having kind of a lull during mid-cart, and then seeing that bounce back on that next to last day of cart open. And that's when we had, we kind of did like a pop-up Q&A session for that. And that obviously brought in lots of great sales too. So in terms of reaching our numbers, we were super close. We came in at 1356, which we are totally considering a win. That is a phenomenal goal that we had there for 1,600 members, and we came in pretty darn close. Now, we're not going to get into this in this particular video, but there is a handful of people that maybe have their card didn't process, or we're still trying to reach out to them with information about updating their billing information. So we may see orders trickle into as that automatic initial failed payment campaign is doing its job. Now, if we look at revenue, of course, that is going to kind of mirror our new members graph over there on the left. But this particular launch brought in almost $70,000 in new business for this month. And bear in mind, these are monthly subscriptions, and her average lifetime cycle for a member is about 6-ish months. So this, we are happy to say, generated her about $400,000 in new revenue for her business. So we are very excited about that. And Graphly is a wonderful tool here that really helps us pull over all of those stats that we are setting up in Infusionsoft and seeing them in a visual dashboard way so that we can stay on track, so that we can stay on target. If we hadn't had Graphly to show us our new members graph here, then we may not have thought about bumping up those sales on that particular day once we saw those numbers kind of dip a little bit lower than we had anticipated. So Graphly has been huge here for us in that. Now let's scroll down and let's take a look at a few more in-depth details about our launch metrics when it comes to kind of measuring new members and how they got there, where they came from. All right, so this next portion of our Graphly board here was super helpful in showing us where that traffic has come from with regard to our registrations for the workshop. So as you can see, we made it really explicit. We wanted to see cold traffic versus warm traffic, with cold traffic mainly being the traffic that registered for that workshop from a Facebook ad or some type of paid advertising. And we also obviously wanted to see workshop registrants total. So we've got those numbers there for us that gives us a really good idea of where those people are coming from. Now, we also wanted to experiment with a couple of different times for this particular workshop. And we decided that we wanted to have a 5 a.m. Eastern and a 3 p.m. Eastern option for our workshop registrants. Clearly, without any hesitation whatsoever, the 3 p.m. EST was definitely the most popular, probably because of where our subscribers, our registrants are located. We also were looking at attendance versus non-attendance here. So again, we wanted to be able to reach out to those people who attended or didn't attend and send them personalized, specialized messages based on their action or inaction. And this helped us see a really clear picture of not just the registrants, but that attendee versus non-attendee stat with regard to the time frame. So while we had 795 5 a.m. attendance here, we actually had 1,177 attendance for the 3 p.m.s. So again, clearly that 3 p.m. time frame worked really well for our audience. And we had a lot of opportunity here to reach out to those non-attendees and re-invite them to another webinar, or kind of give them a little more specialized email communication. Now, looking down here at this bottom portion, it was also really important for us to see, again, based on that attendance and non-attendance, where our actual buyers are coming from. So these numbers are not going to be apples to apples, right? These are different segments, but we can see here that most of our traffic, or most of our warm traffic accounted for most of our buyers, which is pretty much, what we would have expected, with warm traffic being more responsive than cold traffic. We also see that attendance is really important for people to actually convert here. We had 368 sales that came from people who attended the webinar. Now, we also wanted to see what those stats look like with regard to the warm versus cold. And we saw that here too. Again, pretty much what I would have expected. The warm buyers who attended is going to be a much better segment for conversion versus the cold buyers who did not attend, for example. So again, this shows us that, number one, it's really important to track attendance versus non-attendance. And then it gives us a really clear picture of where our buyers are actually coming from, so that we can account for that in the future with future launches, etc. So we're going to dive into a couple more things about this launch. One in particular being a cart abandon sequence. So stay tuned and I'll show you that too. I think that one of the most underutilized methods of getting conversions from a sales promo is to reaching out with a cart abandon campaign. So we implemented one of these for our client and we saw tremendous results. So basically what this looked like in Infusionsoft was us setting up a web page automation goal, which means that we were basically cookieing anybody who was in our database that landed on that specific sales page that we indicated in the campaign. And then we waited about 30 minutes and we sent them one follow-up email. Let's look at the results of that email. So overall, we had a 55% open rate for this particular email, and we had a 10.3% click rate. In one of the graphics here, we can see, again, kind of comparison of the last 7 days of that email and the results of that versus the last 24 hours. And again, we can see tremendous results here. Cart abandonment sequences work. They absolutely work, and they're extremely underutilized. And the reasons kind of make sense when you think about it. People get distracted. Maybe their kids were bothering them when they were trying to sign up for the membership. Maybe they had a phone call, or we all get kind of sucked into context switching and all of that. So taking the initiative and being proactive about reaching out to those people definitely paid off for us, and we're really glad that we implemented that. So we'll definitely be doing that in future launches as well. All right, guys. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this super quick snapshot of how tracking analytics and data throughout your launch can be really helpful for you to make better decisions for what you want to do for future launches. Again, make sure you're tracking those new members. Make sure you're setting a goal so that you can put a line in the sand and know what you're actually heading towards for success. And also remember to segment out and track very specifically whether or not you have registrants for a certain time, or if you're offering multiple workshop times, and also attendance versus non-attendance. And a lot of these segments and tagging for these segments can actually be done through automation. Plus, this is a wonderful tool that allows you to integrate with Zoom and GoToWebinar and platforms like that you can use for your webinar processing, so that those tags can get automatically added throughout that process. So be sure to take advantage of all of the automation opportunities that you have. We'll be back with more client launch stats and giving you kind of a behind the scenes look at what we're doing for clients so that hopefully you can start implementing these techniques and strategies too. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.